Can you hear me okay, Annie?
Yep, absolutely.
Awesome. So Dave Pacific, I'm the analytics technical lead here at Converge. And first and foremost, um, I obviously want to thank everyone for taking time out of your busy schedules to participate in our webinar, right? Um, Obviously, we can't do what we do at Converge without the support of our customers and know how busy you all are day to day. So I really want this to be worth your time, as it's a pretty broad topic to tackle, but something that truly requires focus and attention. But just by being here, you acknowledge that this is important to your organization, right? Maybe it's a complete transformation on your next analytics evolution, or maybe you're looking for the how or the when, and that seems to be the challenge. Change is always hard, right? And in order to be effective and well received, it takes time, planning, and communication. So I'm hoping that today's session shines some light on beginning or furthering your organization's analytics modernization journey, and how our tech team at Converge can partner with you on this journey in building out your analytics library. So for those of you that are not familiar with Converge yet, we are a hybrid IT company that's been built from acquisition. We're at 31 and counting. Our primary presence is here in North America, with most companies located, I would say, near every NFL city, but also have expanded into Europe and Mexico. This strategy that they've developed is to target small to mid-sized companies that meet four key components, starting with a winning culture that has a lot of synergies with the current Converge landscape and culture, strong skills that meet relative market demands from a solutions perspective, promote high quality and strong customer client relationships, and also have strong partnerships. So whether that's with technology or network, we work with many organizations to ensure that our portfolio of skills and solutions is really well-rounded, and it supports customer demands and market growth. But in terms of those solutions and services, in any transformation, there are a lot of different facets that can stem outside of analytics, and the unique value that we at Converge bring to the table is that we can support you on all of them. What I value most about being here as part of Converge is this holistic go-to-market solutioning to bring these full 360-degree solutions to our customers, and that's across 6 solution practice areas. The beautiful thing about our company is that they all invoke one another, right? Whether our analytics team is implementing a data platform that needs its own cloud solution, or a hybrid cloud solution, or a customer has a data breach where our security team can respond within minutes. Maybe it's companies that are enabling digital workplace so that employees can work from anywhere in the globe, whether it's at a local Starbucks or even at their home office. We spend a lot of time and make a lot of investment in these cross-practice solutions. For example, the analytics practice, which I'm from, and the application modernization teams really go hand in hand in building custom low-code or no-code solutions, say to develop mobile applications, or automating mundane tasks through robotic process automation, which we'll talk a little bit about today. But each of these key solution practices offer not just standard consulting with development and implementation, but we have strategic thinkers, and you'll hear me say that a lot, that in most cases they've been working in the field for over 20 years, and they've seen and heard so many different customer pain points that we can easily assess and formulate recommendations on a roadmap to help alleviate those problems and get to solutioning faster. Oftentimes we find customers, they don't want to maintain the technology, the platforms, or infrastructure. So we also offer managed services, and where we might have the available talent to serve our customers immediately, or let's say for a longer term engagement, maybe staff augmentation or a try before you buy model, we have talent services that does all of our internal and external recruiting. So it's really a full spectrum, beginning to end, of industry solution practice areas. And this all speaks to an organization's transformation across a multitude of solution areas. But in the spirit of analytics modernization, right, and focusing on our advanced analytics practice, likely why you folks are all here, is to understand the ability to harness and create the most value out of your data and objectively identifying priority use cases to bring the most value to your company. This is what our technical team does day in and day out. And we'll touch upon each of these areas in their own modernization track, but we enable customers to turn information into insights and gain access and trust in the wealth of data that you are sitting on, right? The intent here is to move you up the analytics pyramid that we're showing here and increase data literacy. Whether you have data on-prem, in a cloud, or both, the trick here is how do we make it accessible and actionable? Most of the customers are in the state of analysis paralysis, meaning they know that they need to modernize, but where do they get started? The most important question is, how can they get started? And we want to make that as simple and painless as possible. It can start with the data platform by migrating SQL Server to the cloud, but it doesn't have to. It could start with financial and operational performance management by, let's say, reducing manual Excel budgeting processes, but it doesn't have to. It could start with robotic process automation tools to reduce repetitive and mundane human-related tasks, but again, it doesn't have to. It could start with implementing a data visualization or reporting tool to allow for more self-service mode 2 analytics. But again, it doesn't have to. The point here is that it could start anywhere, and there is no one size fits all. This analytics modernization conversation simply needs to start. So Annie, if you could quickly bring up the first poll, it would be helpful to see and understand what drove folks to attend our analytics modernization webinar today. Give folks a minute to submit. So I'm hoping that if these beautiful folks on our team are not familiar today, they will be tomorrow. They're all practitioners, trusted advisors that have been in the field of analytics in some cases for over 30 years, right? It's more important for our customers to understand that we know data in the analytics landscape and where the market is going, which is critical when telling, let's say, the data fabric story, where data is everywhere and the technologies that prepare, store, deliver that data are constantly growing. So it's much easier for me to speak to you without having to worry about the technologies that you're leveraging today, but rather how we can help augment or modernize what you are attempting to do on this journey. And whether it's ideating or implementing the solutions with your organization that you've already dreamt up, we have in-depth experience within our team to have that broad, overarching discussion, or we can really get down into the weeds of a data problem and immediately help to start developing a solution. So why are we here? This is the Analytics Modernization webinar. What is analytics modernization? And organizations, they might call this by other names such as analytics transformation or data transformation, but at its root, the goal is to increase analytics adoption across all levels of the enterprise, increasing, again, data literacy, trust, and accessibility, making an organization truly data-driven. We know that you have data, information that you've been capturing for years, and you're sitting on a wealth of it, and the problem is in how do you make heads or tails of it, all of that data, right? See the forest through the trees from the mess that your company has likely created while onboarding new data sources. new tools to store, extract, and consume that information. Ultimately, this all stems from not having a proper strategy in place, starting from databases to integration to warehousing to security and governance to visualization and beyond in what we call the data estate or data ecosystem, which is everything that surrounds, interacts, and reacts with data. Often there are priority needs that, if left in their current state, they're going to be more difficult to tackle the longer that they're left alone. So the best place to start is anywhere, right? But there are some common themes that we find in these analytics modernization conversations. So for those themes, it's really 4 data estate issues that we hear day to day, and obvious key aspects that a company is likely thinking about modernizing, whether they know it or not. As many, I would say, as half of our customers have more than one BI platform or reporting platform, as companies have adopted multiple tools to meet the needs of their business, likely due to perceived constraints in self-service and IT being a bottleneck for data accessibility. On the opposite side of this, some customers without BI reporting are abusing Excel as a database, a data integration tool, visualization for forecasting and reporting all at once. They're typically performing, we'll say, manual budgeting and planning activities in this labor-intensive manual monthly process to close their books or estimate supply chain management. And even worse, these tools are given a bad name because of a poor in-house implementation, right? And the solution is typically to throw more tools at the problem. Again, data's everywhere, exponentially increasing. It's become the new water. Companies now need it to thrive and stay relevant to their competitors. Organizations, they're in this transition with data located in one or more cloud and an on-premise data center, or scattered in personal files with a lot of different sources and formats of data to manage across the enterprise, right? And whether it's cloud apps, databases, big data, or on the right here, humongous data, effectively creating a never-ending data sprawl. The requirements for integrating some of these sources to support various business use cases, it's I'll say nearly impossible, and it makes monetizing that data difficult, all the while figuring out how to minimize on-prem footprints and bring the data or applications to the cloud, right? Cloud migration, it's not as simple as tying a CD-ROM or a backup tape to a balloon. At least I hope that's not how all my music ended up in the cloud. On the third point here, organizations have or are considering embarking on a data warehouse or a data lake, or even a data lake house, which someday I'd like to own my own without all the data sitting inside of it, maybe have my family instead, just maybe. But most of these data platforms, they're not built to scale, meaning not modeled or optimized for efficient data access by BI or artificial intelligence tools. And very rarely do they contain all of the required information and are unable to keep pace or in lockstep with the changing and growing business requirements of your organization. So this data, whether it's structured, unstructured, hot, cold, it can be way too complicated for businesses to navigate the tools provided. And in return, business line of business and IT are often frustrated with each other over data accessibility or availability, performance, and then usability issues. And then the last point here, businesses are starting to engage in more advanced analysis on their data, but often they don't have the necessary skills to support it or get it off the ground, and they need easy to use advanced capabilities which the business can independently leverage, effectively becoming what we call citizen data scientists, right? Because you shouldn't need a PhD to be truly effective with data. These data scientists, or even citizens, they often require enterprise data preparation to support the training of models, and they'll struggle with, let's say, how to best operationalize and put their models into a production state. So why are companies modernizing, right? And the reasons for modernizing are different from organization to organization, but it almost always starts with the why, right? Like any estate, it needs care, it needs feeding, maintenance, it needs to be constantly updated. In a past life, I was a plumber. This is a true story. And I did it just long enough to know that I didn't want to be a plumber, but oftentimes the worst and most expensive phone calls, they would occur when a customer neglected to update or even monitor their plumbing infrastructure, right? A leaky pipe causes a lot more damage when unnoticed, and an overflowing septic system, I'll say, legitimately flows downstream, if you catch my drift. But you don't have to fix everything at once, but you need to fix individual parts of that estate over time, because neglecting it, it's not only going to be more expensive later, but it's also going to take more time and create this legacy mindset where any change becomes too challenging to make. So it's important to have a future state strategy in place, because no one wants to be in a downstream situation later where we can most certainly avoid it. A lot of organizations, they know that they're at this breaking point. So think of it this way: the reasons for modernizing are the same reasons you update your home, your plumbing. You don't want a leak to ruin the first floor of your house, and simply putting in more pipes and a bigger hot water heater is not going to be the right answer. Bigger's not always better, right? Some of those hot water heaters, they're the size of a pizza box now, and although they take more time and money to implement, they last much longer, especially more so than their outdated counterparts. And eventually, they will save you time and money. Faster hot water and more efficiency. So organizations, they need to rethink their analytics infrastructure, technical systems, how they are performing data integration, governance, stewardship, and master data management, and what I consider to be most important, the people skills, right? People skills in-house today, or if you need to hire to be more efficient, performant, and build to future scale. So across the board, these elements are achieved by delivering the most value to your company as quick as possible, calculating true ROI, which enhances the continuation of modernization. And analytics is already hard, but the process for preparing data to even get to where it can be used for analytics is likely the most difficult part. Analytics consumers only care about what they can see or the tip of the iceberg, but we know there's a lot more that has to happen to even make that information usable, namely data operations. 80% of an analyst's time is just spent preparing the data. And I'll correct the statistic. I would say 15% of the time is simply spent complaining about the process, and maybe the remainder, 5% or less, is actually spent analyzing it. So it goes without saying, this doesn't scale. We need to know where the data is, how to access it, can it be trusted, is the quality there, and in return, what insight can we gain from it quickly? The process, this really affords, I'll say, the right hand of the data equation. Getting the data right brings about more efficiencies in an effort to make information ubiquitous. Because of this, it is really hard for organizations to get started, right? There are so many analytics tools and concepts that need to be understood, strategized, and this causes, again, that state of analysis paralysis, not just on the effort to prepare data. Oftentimes we hear, if it isn't broken, don't fix it, which is part, again, of this legacy mindset. It makes my stomach turn when an organization is fine with just throwing more money at the problem, whether it's more tools or more hardware. I don't know how many times that I personally have spoken to a customer who's evaluating new technologies simply because of the way that they use the tool, which is the wrong mindset. Why do software companies have upgrades when customers refuse to take advantage of the enhancements they're entitled to simply because it takes too much time and money? Legacy tools cannot solve modern data problems, and it is causing organizations to blindly throw away good in the effort of perfect. So don't let perfect be the enemy of good. The pile of books on this slide here is the analytics problem. And on this quest, how can you find the right insights quickly and be sure that it's right and make it repeatable? The worst part is that employees will go through this same data operations quest over and over and over and over again without ever documenting it, without ever verifying the source, essentially perpetuating the problem. How can you build any trust or adoption at your organization if there are no standards, if there is no data stewardship or governance or best practices regarding tooling? What we need to do here is take a step back, right? Slow down in order to go faster. Uh, if you look at the significant impact it would make on an organization to democratize data, make it available to everybody, we can remove the IT bottleneck and onboard data faster while increasing that adoption. This is the biggest challenge in determining, let's say, which book do I pick up first and what shelf do I put it on? Is my library already built, or do I need to check it out from somewhere else? Do we have the skills to build the bookshelves internally, or is this from IKEA and the instructions are in a foreign language, right? This all requires strategy in what to modernize first and will provide the most value to the organization quickly. And this is where our tech team is at their best. Picking a single use case, a single application, a manual data process, and focus on getting it right. A small win propagates continued success and creates what we call a jealousy model. When one department sees what another is getting with less effort, others will ask for the same. If you build it once the right way, others will want to follow. But from there, we can iterate, and most organizations have adopted agile sprints to plan, deliver, and show incremental value. It's no longer a boil the ocean approach. We don't deliver year-long data warehousing or data lake projects anymore. It doesn't scale, and it definitely doesn't sell. If we establish better practices, right? Better practices, because it doesn't have to be the best to start in the right direction. Doing something is better than doing nothing at all, but the objective of this first step is to start monetizing and productizing your analytics infrastructure for faster and more accurate insights, develop new revenue streams, right? Increase data literacy and self-sufficiency. So in the essence of going slower, it will save time and money for the future business. So in building out that first bookshelf, it starts with these isolated data projects, putting a stake in the ground and iterating, moving toward building a standard and reliable data process, right? A central data repository or your first bookshelf. We start to enable aspects like SQL or NoSQL, the ability to visualize data for a specific subject area, satisfying data consumers while building in the appropriate data security. In controlling that data estate sprawl, we bring everything under a single governed source that allows for repeatable or predictable metadata or data models to be developed. Data eventually becomes easier to understand. It can be easier to identify, catalog it quickly, and we know who has access to it, whether it's PII or PHI, and whether it's at source or when it's even extracted. We unify these controls and establish governance for each iteration, it creates a necessary audit trail, necessary documentation, and it builds trust in the information, and it affords the ability to swiftly operationalize. Now, let's say data scientists have what they need at their fingertips, whether it's the raw data that they require or data that's specifically prepared for them to apply machine learning. We built that single bookshelf from start to finish, allowing for the democratization and accessibility of that information. So where does this end up in this future data estate architecture? Simply by starting with a single bookshelf. This is an analytics library of finely curated, organized, governed, cataloged, secured books. In 1876, Melville Dewey, he created the Dewey Decimal System. And I'm sure people thought he was absolutely insane. It will take too much time. But ironically, it's still in use today, right? And it still requires ongoing maintenance and upkeep as, you know, new books are being authored and shelves need to be built. But I know that it all started out with that single book on a bookshelf. So in concept, it may seem difficult, but in practice, it's easier than most organizations may think. Whether it's the platforms implementing predictive or cognitive analytics, producing self-service, or the data itself, it should be easy to navigate no matter how big or humongous the data gets. Organizations, they can no longer afford to continue the mindset of letting perfect be the enemy of good. So now that we understand the current state and have started a plan for future state, we can begin picking on these isolated projects, right, to start moving the needle toward optimized project-based efforts. In formulating that roadmap, we can begin to prioritize these projects in one of two modes. What are my biggest data-related pain points versus what will provide the biggest ROI for my organization in controlling the data estate? There are so many different data-related activities that are required by operations, and in this current state assessment, we can organize these activities into their respective buckets to prioritize, right? The list of current state issues at the top here are some of the common analytics issues that we addressed a little bit earlier, but our approach to modernizing, it begins with identifying and prioritizing to achieve a future state. So for each of these priorities, Converge has developed a set of tools or offerings to support customers on this effort of identifying models how to execute. This list, it's not exhaustive, but I'm hoping you can maybe entertain us by telling us which topics under data, prescriptive, predictive, and cognitive, or application and automation modernization resonate with your company the most. So Annie, if you can bring up the other poll, we'll give folks a minute to submit. Awesome. So on that note, I'd like to say we're about almost 30 minutes into this webinar and we have not mentioned a single technology, right? We really try not to discuss technology before we understand an organization's data ecosystem so that we can make recommendations, but I'll break my rule for a minute here to support, my claim that technology should not be the primary driver for modernization. Oftentimes, the right tools are already in-house, they're being utilized. However, they might be implemented long ago or with this legacy mindset. So as I said before, the team is staffed with technologists. They're hands-on technical leaders that have established data warehouses in Oracle, Redbrick, SQL Server, Snowflake, Yellowbrick, Netezza, Teradata. They've migrated data platforms to cloud, whether that's Netezza or Snowflake, established and improved data pipelines, conducted technology refreshes, augmented with complementary big data platforms like Hadoop and Spark, ported to cloud or data cloud, if you will, and maintained, administered, developed enterprise BI solutions, more than Mode 1 analytics, and also modern Mode 2 self-service analytics platforms like a Tableau or Power BI, Yellowfin, Looker, Click. Again, that list is exhaustive. We've implemented migrated manual Excel processes for planning, budgeting, forecasting to more standard applications like planning analytics. We also have expertise that spans all the primary cloud providers, whether it's AWS, Azure, GCP. So again, cloud agnostic to our customers and vendors. But many of these folks on our team today, these resources, they're former advisory and SaaS programmers. They're certified data warehouse and cloud data architects, seasoned data modelers and DBAs, and they're really particularly skilled at high-end data warehousing, right, and work with leading edge cloud database vendors. So we're confident in leveraging our resume and expertise here. We can start the conversation so that it doesn't have to lead with vendor or product. We're at our best when we can support that discussion with you on making the right technology decisions based on our assessment criteria and working through this overall strategy. So now that we've level set on what analytics monetization is and the strategy on how to get to an actionable future state, I'd like to present some of the tools that Converge has developed to support organizations on getting started or partnering with you to identify specific use cases for the purpose of modernization. And some of these are conceptual in that with the right team, maybe you can put it into practice on your own. However, our technical leads, they're fantastic at facilitating and moderating these discussions and workshops to extract, I'll say, the most value in the shortest amount of time. If we go all the way from just the data modernization journey, which could include data platform, integration, visualization, and even artificial intelligence. Maybe it's a design thinking solution in an effort to build out an MVP application, to hacking it out with an AI strike team on a single use case, right? And even beyond with what we're calling our fast start or jumpstart offerings for robotic process automation and data visualization. So even if you're a high-performing analytics organization today, we have assessments across data platform, warehouse, ETL, ELT, and data visualization to, again, understand the state of the state and looking to either instantiate better practices, provide guardrails for continuing implementation, or reassessing and modernizing with new or complementary technologies. So these offerings, they're designed to support you where you're not sure where to begin, or enhancing your analytics maturity, and again, pushing you up the advanced analytics pyramid. So the first tool in the toolbox here, this is our data modernization workshop, and it acts as the tip of the spear because it's great for organizations that don't know where to get started on their analytics journey, or let's say have a very specific data platforming related pain point. In this, the team can quickly show value in we understand the current state, your landscape, and the problems that you're having, and we can immediately start to put together recommendations on how to alleviate. So our technical team, they've designed a standard for current state assessment across 3 key verticals in people, process, and technology, which again are all essential components of your company's data estate. The objective is to cover key concepts, right, that comprise that future state data strategy. So you're aware of the market landscape, where it's going, and that your organization is fully aware of the implications of the data decisions that you're making today and in the future, or in some cases that you're not making at all, and how that's going to impact you. We partner with customers to identify and provide insight into priorities that we hear maybe a technology will or will not handle, or how, let's say, the team composition today affects your organization's ability to scale and the respective areas of opportunity to start on that modernization conversation, again, whether it's people, process, or technology. So we open the door to invite as many data stakeholders as possible in an interview style workshop that allows us to build rapport, show that we understand and can identify data priorities alongside of you and how we can best help support. So this slide, it's really an eye chart into discussion topics, or at least those key concepts that your organization needs to be considering on this journey. High level, going from data sources, likely silos, how they are or are not integrated, the volume of data, how it's being loaded or indexed, maybe how it's being consumed or interacted with inside of a BI tool or completely outside of the system in typically Excel spreadsheets where consumers, analysts do what I call their own magic math to try to get to a source of truth and establish their own flavor of governance and security. Oftentimes, we find in these conversations or these workshops gaps in not only the processes, but also the people, where we start to identify bottlenecks or turf wars or single points of failure that need to be resolved on this quest to democratize data. In understanding, let's say, even how a new request for data is achieved all the way from intake, do you open a ticket, how is that data being integrated, brought into source, and the practices that are being used to extract, right? A lot of the times there are governance gaps, not only in the data being reported, but also in how analytics are being governed in data visualization tools, which I'll talk about in a minute. So how this all plays out, much like the library in what we call the modernization bow tie and building out your first bookshelf, or maybe jumping into the middle of your analytics library, all the sources of information are on the left-hand side of this equation. Again, we assume them to be siloed. The center or knot of that bow tie, this is where analytics at scale is achieved, whether the data is virtualized in a single platform or data warehouse or a cloud. That central repository, it becomes, again, the curated, cleansed, trusted source of information, effectively the library, which in turn allows any other tool or application to attach to it. And the questions around data quality are no longer an issue from any data being visualized, right? We have effectively put a barcode on each data element that was previously isolated, segmented, and subsequently achieved the start of our library. I'm going to review a handful of customer modernization success stories in a few minutes here, but I wanted to provide, a template for what this modernization launch point, once we understand current state and taking data modernization platform as the example for this. So for those initial customer conversations, the next step is to align and agree on business requirements, use cases for a phase 0 or phase 1 solution. And the solution does not have to be platform. It could be instantiating just better practices or establishing a data governance program. The point is to gain buy-in on the architectural blueprints for the future, which could be building out that central repository in a data warehouse, building out the data pipelines, and visualizing the data in just a few sprints. So this provides that blueprint, roadmap, and diagram for the first bookshelf. It brings awareness into an implementation plan and the effort necessary to achieve. So by providing a tangible and making the future state objective, we can organize the technology, processes, and the team required to implement the plan. So without understanding your current implementation plan, this doesn't make a lot of sense, but I want to provide some context for what we can achieve, again, in those handfuls of sprints to execute on the roadmap, right? With that agile sprint methodology, we can go from technology evaluation directly to implementation for a phase 1 solution and then iterate. This iteration is critical to the process, and it will get easier with each subsequent phase. Facts, dimensions, they'll get reused. Data flows will be updated to integrate new data sources. Metadata will provide more governance as additional data becomes available. Eventually, onboarding new data sources, it will be a seamless transition and require very little effort. But displayed in this plan, the technology shouldn't matter, again, when formulating that future state. There'll always be a right tool for the right job, and the current state assessment allows us to make inferences into what that may be, but it is priority based as use cases are identified and where we're going to start the modernization journey or maybe that next phase. So we partner with customers in determining that most appropriate technology landscape. Maybe it's based on existing footprint or skill set, or maybe it's the CIO's penchant for a certain data cloud. We provide objective representation into every modernization project from that current state and future state architecture. So if this was our project and our budget, here are the technologies that you should be evaluating. Here are the projects in priority order that you should be considering. And here is the team that you'll need to begin to execute with or without us as a partner. Hopefully it's with. So with this tip of the spear spanning from data platform to integration technologies and methodologies to how data is being consumed or reported on, we talk about a lot of these different subject areas in these workshop sessions, and the outcome is an executive summary presentation with a single slide of what we heard, how to improve, evaluate, and implement. So only for a few hours or days of investment, we can get to an actionable state on what comes first or next in a customer's analytics maturity. And this low entry point, again, high value, $10,000 investment with the tangibles that are provided, it's often something that we give back. It shows that the organization is invested in us and our expertise and willing to walk alongside of us and partner on this journey. Some organizations, they want to get started on this development and execution of a data strategy and roadmap. So we have these data platforming vision acceleration offerings. And this is an expansion of that data modernization workshop. It's a hybrid offering. It combines elements of planning and design engagements into a single abbreviated offering designed to quickly reach an actionable state for project kickoff. In addition to the standard data modernization workshop, it goes a bit deeper into the technology landscape, building out future state architecture from the technologies that we're going to recommend. But from this accelerated project, we can get to a phase 0 or phase 1 implementation to execute on that roadmap and start delivering on a solution and use case that we identify. So for customers that know they want to invest immediately following that workshop, this is an all-encompassing assessment and it gets them there quicker, facilitating that crawl, walk, run approach, which again, we can start out from just the data warehouse migration to a new platform, whether on-prem or cloud, and bring along with it other complementary technologies in the ecosystem. Ultimately, the goal here is to modernize the ecosystem to provide business enablement, speed to market, simplicity, and flexibility. But the outcomes from this directly feed into the launch of a data modernization initiative. So within the data modernization workshop offering, business intelligence or business analytics and data visualization are typically at the front end, meaning it's the looking glass into the data. And whether that's for analysis or enterprise reporting, this is where data quality issues typically surface, right? In an ideal state, getting the data organized so that it's right, can be trusted, will only enhance the ease of use and intuitiveness of any data visualization or reporting project. But in addition, customers are throwing out their data visualization tools because, again, their poor implementation, or in some cases that they abuse the asset. Again, it doesn't have to start with the data, but there are some benefits to doing so, but not all organizations have the luxury of slowing down so they can go faster. But similar to what that data modernization workshop achieves, but again, focusing the lens on data visualization, if organizations already have the data part right, visualization, I'll say, is the icing on the cake. And whether we are assessing reporting being done from Excel, a homegrown or third-party product, understanding how data is being visualized and the effort required to consume and analyze that data, it's critical to developing that roadmap. The key benefits for achieving a successful business analytics implementation, it starts from building trust in the platform and having appropriate standards in place, creating guardrails so that users cannot produce bad data on their own. This in turn, right, increases time to market, user adoption, and not only reusability of reporting or dashboarding assets, but also scalability, because we can do things quicker without IT or data engineering support. The other considerations in this approach for modernizing and visualizing data is analytics governance. And I want to separate this concept from data governance, where data governance has to do with the quality of the data being consumed. Analytics governance is how creating data visualizations can produce reliable and predictable results while reducing the amount of data sets or metadata sources. But think of it this way: instead of allowing all the developers to create their own data source connections, the platform owners should take responsibility for those metadata assets, so there is the appropriate business logic, join structures, and security that's baked in so one model can fit the needs of many, right? Having a BI strategy that encompasses all these facets is just the start for building out a successful implementation, and the tooling can become second to that plan. As the technology market, it's rapidly changing, right? Business demands are also evolving along with the tooling. Those should scale in parallel. So when we discuss analytics and business intelligence, it's typically in two modes, right? Mode one for analytics that are managed and governed by IT, more of a top-down approach, or mode two, which are more grassroots, self-service, user-driven analytics, more bottom-up. Sometimes it's about expediency, right? To get access to data and in the hands of the business. And sometimes it's about building trust in the data and creating single-click enterprise-wide reporting. One certainly does not preclude the other, but there are some tools that perform one better than the other, or even both in some cases. Again, it's all in the intention of the implementation of the tooling. And as we discussed in our pain points, many organizations have several tools and each can have a place within the business and usually requires a different strategy for each, given how your organization wants to provide data for self-service versus standard enterprise reporting. So very quick game on our approach to data visualization. We're agnostic, but within this dashboard, we see 6 separate dashboards, right? All have a very similar look and feel. Out-of-the-box mapping capabilities, heat maps, line graphs, aggregate summary KPIs. But they're different tools, right? And we don't care as much about the front end, but rather the data that lies underneath. Building out that trusted and governed data platform, it allows the business to pivot in any direction and select the most appropriate tooling for the needs of the business. We at Converge, we work with all these vendors and more. So if you're thinking about changing out data visualization tools or implementing a new one, we've developed this implementation strategy for modernizing and visualizing data using best practices as quick as possible, right? The objective here is to partner with our customers that are just starting out on this data visualization activity or reporting initiative, or maybe you're swapping out old for new. We need to identify the primary use cases and build all these corresponding data assets required to get technology and the solution off the ground. And this stems all the way from ideation and review of your current data visualization assets. That could be in something as simple as Excel, and then how to build scalable solutions using best practices around, again, a specific subject area while providing mentoring all along the way here. The end result is an MVP offering, and it includes the necessary data models or metadata, along with a few reports, dashboards that will be dependent on the technology that makes the most sense that we select here. But the objective is to show a return on investment quickly and educate on the art of the possible. As data visualization and interactive report analysis, it's a never-ending endeavor. So teaching our customers to fish so they can take ownership of the technology, develop, administer, and maintain is the top priority. Again, if we take more of a conceptual and solution-based approach, independent of technology, this is design thinking. It's a method used by our team to help solve complex problems and find desirable solutions. So as an initial engagement, design thinking, it allows us to ideate through a series of stakeholder discussions to define key personas that require a solution. Maybe it's in the form of an application that has unknown or ill-defined requirements. But taking that user-focused approach, it opens more doors in attempting to empathize and understand the needs of the audience while defining the problems that they're trying to solve, while not talking technology, right? This is leveraged, again, to ideate and strategize on a potential end solution as a team, and then get to wireframing almost in real time and ensure that the users have a voice and they can review and shape the solution alongside of us. So not having the end state anywhere in mind, or if a customer does have the end state in mind and no strategy on how to get to that point, this is the perfect offering to build a state-of-the-art custom solution using that agile sprint methodology, going from stakeholder conversation to ideation, roadmap on execution. This whole set of activities, they're designed to assist clients in understanding and defining business use cases and purpose. And the deliverable is to provide that blueprint to get to a rapid development MVP solution and start getting to prototyping quickly. In 1 to 2 sprints, we can gather all those requirements for the MVP, along with the roadmap, architecture, and a cost estimate for building out that to be determined custom solution state, right, or application. So for customers that want to modernize on an application or mobile application, this is a great step to imagining, designing, and delivering a tangible wireframe for that custom solution with our app dev and modernization team. So again, if we continue up the analytics pyramid and piggybacking the design thinking workshop, is oftentimes that can lead to more cognitive analytics development, such as artificial intelligence, machine learning, and robotic process automation. So I like to call our AI and data science team the brains, eyes, and ears and voice of our solution team. Enabling computer vision allows machines to see and process images and videos. For example, analyzing the quality of products on an assembly line as the first quality check, right? I think we can all agree that the machines they're able to listen, communicate with us more effectively than ever. Some might say they even know a little too much and what we're thinking. But this is part of that auditory processing invoked again by machine learning and the ability to understand and comprehend natural human text, whether it's spoken or typed in something like a chatbot. But each of these cognitive analytics elements, it allows for such things like autonomous vehicles, as they're able to hear, see, and process in real time information so quickly, we simply get to sit back and watch. And the last element here, it should truly be part of your analytics modernization conversation in robotic process automation, or RPA, right? For human-related tasks that require repetitive manual effort, such as, let's say, human resources onboarding, where numerous documents must be signed, returned, logins and passwords created, network access provision, all these elements can be consolidated through a single mouse click. So underneath this umbrella, there's a lot of opportunity to, again, save time and money, but most organizations are simply unsure how to approach it. So this particular offering, it can take many different shapes, but as requirements are loosely defined up front, bringing in, embedding an entire tech team or strike team, we can design and execute an AI sprint that flushes out a cognitive solution after determining that specific use case. The end result is a working demo of the solution that includes a readout with a product demonstration, enablement requirements, and technology assessment for what is needed to bring that solution to life. This includes that roadmap for the phase 0 implementation, but it also demonstrates quickly the utilization of the technology and a fast ROI in really a 1-week effort that requires, again, a highly skilled team to ideate through design thinking and deliver on that AI modernization effort. So as organizations, again, stated up front, have increasing needs to remove those human elements from repetitive tasks and automate workflows to perform those tasks, we'll say freeing up the resources to do more strategic endeavors. This RPA Jumpstart, it's a great place to identify a single phase use case that gets the customer to see the art of the possible, right? Developing what will be a production ready asset by the end of the engagement. This Jumpstart, it encompasses some of the prior offerings with design thinking sprinkled in, and helps to gather requirements and ensure that the customer stakeholders are heard, but also shaping success criteria. So when we implement new concepts and technologies like RPA, the team does this in a way to establish a foundational groundwork to allow for scale and agility in that future state, and it gives the customers, again, a pattern to follow if they choose to take the future development efforts on their own, which is certainly okay with us, but usually we find other opportunities for new workflows for automation in these engagements, and that will quickly roll into a subsequent phase, as organizations desire, or at least, again, teaching them how to fish so you can do it on your own. So with all these analytics modernization tools, I'm hopeful some or all piqued your interest or are relevant for your organization on this journey. But if we turn to a couple quick success stories that our teams delivered in partnership in a rapid fire fashion, so you can better understand our ability to support analytics transformation across the board. So this first example, a manufacturing customer engaged the team as they were considering modernizing with new technologies and wanted confirmation on the feasibility and effort to move to a data cloud platform, which Converge supported the scoping and sizing of that environment and cloud consumption to scale. Meanwhile, they were also looking for guidance on what ETL tools might fit best within the data cloud warehouse space that they were interested in, and we helped to evaluate, select a best-of-breed complementary data integration product. But from this preliminary engagement, we now have recurring advisory services where they're leveraging our team with building out the data warehouse, providing best practices and support the review, analysis, and migration of new potential workloads to the cloud. But because of the success of that preliminary project, they've selected Converge to help design new application architectures that require migrating data from SAP to the data cloud and retrofitting into an architecture. Similarly, this retail sports equipment company was embarking on a similar evaluation, looking at moving from an MPP on-prem data warehouse to a new cloud data platform, and they hired our Converge team to do a current state assessment on the feasibility and cost justification to migrate. So we supported them on evaluating ETL tools and also a modernization POC, moving data into the cloud and reporting from a new cloud-based data visualization product. And this was so wildly successful that the team's currently working on scoping and estimates for the next phase to start moving the entire data warehouse and corresponding workloads into that new data cloud warehouse. Again, productionalizing standard reporting on top of that new reporting platform. So one last use case here in a supermarket chain that was leveraging an old data visualization technology that required nightly system extracts to populate interactive dashboards. Through a quick data visualization assessment, we're able to gain alignment in that future state technology and develop the strategy for implementation using the data visualization Jumpstart as a guide. By focusing on a handful of key operational dashboards, we're able to train the customer using best practices and standardizing on, again, that analytics governance program to reduce redundant data models. They were able to take ownership of the technology and development methodologies, and they now have fully migrated from that legacy platform and are operational in this new technology. Most recently, the customers reached back out to engage the team for more advanced concepts such as backup automation, high availability, and disaster recovery. So I'm hoping you were able to understand the approach here and partnering with organizations on this analytics modernization and transformation journey. But to summarize our engagement methodology and why our team at Converge, right? The easiest point is in our name. We bring technology solutions together for our customers. Strategic thinkers, trusted advisors, but first and foremost, they are technologists. The team's well-versed in a multitude of technologies, development methodologies. It is our job to determine that path of least resistance in conjunction with your organization's requirements and priorities. So we support in planning for the future and work as complements to one another. In this working in hand, we help customers see the forest through the trees, find the biggest pain points or highest value projects, formulate that ideal solution, and work with you to bring incremental wins to fruition. And we want that to be easier than you think, right? We're data plumbers, engineers, curators, architects, scientists, cultivators, librarians, all the necessary roles to support your data estate. We can be the groundskeeper or maybe a strategic cog in your analytics wheel, forming that partnership to walk hand in hand in your modernization journey. As we discussed, we've crafted all of these modernization tools, offerings, assessments for each of our respective sub-practices within our team, right? As a low entry point to engaging quickly, no matter what analytics pain point you have today. So the last point, and I'll open this up for Q&A and turn it over to Annie. What's important for everyone listening is that we aim to educate you on the art of the possible. So when there is a data problem, we hope that you think of Converge to support you, at least start the conversation. I'm just a technical resource first, and I don't always have something to sell. I honestly love data, and I love to hear what organizations are doing with it and help to develop a strategy. So I would really appreciate any conversation you want to bring to the table, assuming something we discussed here today resonated with you. We want to be your go-to partners, right? And hope that the webinar provoked some thought, provided a high-level roadmap of where you can get started and how our technical analytics team at Converge can augment you in many different facets of your modernization journey. Again, just think of Melville Dewey the next time someone complains about the process of inaccessibility of data. You might feel crazy now, but I'm honestly confident that you'll find building that single bookshelf, although hard to start, it will be worth it in the end. So appreciate all your time, participation, attentiveness. Thank you all. I'm going to open it up to Q&A or turn it over to Annie to discuss the follow-up incentive.
Thanks, David. It was a great presentation. If you do have any questions, please pop them into the Q&A panel or the chat panel. I wanted to let everybody know that we are running an incentive. If you do book a meeting with us before June 17th, we're offering another $50 DoorDash gift code. I'm going to pop that link right into the chat, and I'll also put that in the follow-up communications. And again, if you are calling in from your phone and don't have your first name and last name showing, please send me via chat, via Q&A, your email address. I do need that to match up to get you your DoorDash card.